I want you to picture your life right now. Not the idealized version, but the actual messy, wonderful reality of it.
Mm-hmm.
You have your routine. Maybe on Fridays you meet the guys for a drink. Maybe you're the one who organizes the annual camping trip or, I don't know, the family hunting weekend.
You have a role.
You have a distinct shape in your social world. You are the planner or the funny one or, the reliable one.
Defined utility to the group, a purpose.
Right. A role. Now imagine a single second ticks by on the clock and a Ford F-150 runs a red light while you're on your motorcycle.
Wow. Just like that.
In that split second, the you that existed, the guy who organizes the trips, the guy who tells the jokes, is effectively, erased.
Gone.
You are alive, but you are not that guy anymore. You're in a hospital bed. You have a traumatic brain injury. You have broken bones. You are facing months, maybe years of rehab.
And this is where the cultural script tells us what happens next. This is, the part of the movie where the music swells, the family gathers around the bedside, and everyone promises to get through this together.
Yeah, we love that story.
We love a tragedy because we love the redemption arc of community support. We need to believe that's what happens.
Except that script isn't what happened to the person we're talking about today. I found a thread on the emotional neglect subreddit that it struck me cold. It was posted by a user named GoldTomorrow7712. And his story forces us to look at a dynamic that is so toxic, so confusing, and yet so common that we have to dedicate this entire deep dive to unpacking it.
We're talking about the concept of reactive abuse.
We are. But before we even get to the clinical terms, I need to stay in this guy's shoes for just a minute, because the setup here it's just crucial.
The context is everything.
So Gold Tomorrow survives this horrific crash. He has a TBI, he's disabled, and instead of the Hallmark movie ending, his family effectively drops him off at an apartment and says, and this is a direct quote from his post, "Good luck."
Good luck.
Yeah.
It's such a banal phrase, isn't it? I mean, we say it to someone buying a lottery ticket.
Right.
But to say to a family member with a brain injury who you are leaving alone,
yeah,
that's not a well wish. That is a severance.
The termination.
It is a termination of the social contract. Absolutely.
And that severance didn't just mean they stopped visiting. It meant the life he had before continued, just without him in it.
Oh, that's brutal.
He talks about seeing photos on Facebook of the annual fishing trips, the hunting trips, the family gatherings. The machine of the family just kept turning, and he was just a cog that had been, I guess, replaced or just discarded.
Which is deeply, deeply isolating. But what happens when he tries to speak up about it? I mean, he must have said something.
That's the kicker. That's where this all turns. When he finally says, "Hey, I'm lonely, you promised to help me. Why are you excluding me?" They don't apologize.
Of course not.
They don't say, "Oh my God, we didn't realize." They tell him he is the problem.
Wow.
They tell him he's too angry. They tell him he's crazy. And this guy, who is struggling to regulate his emotions because of literal brain damage, starts screaming. He explodes.
And then they can point.
And then they point at him and say, "See? This is why we can't be around you."
And there we have it. The trap is sprung.
Yeah.
Perfectly.
He called it reactive abuse. He found that term online, and he said it was like a light bulb turning on. But as I was reading through the research you pulled, specifically from Very Well Mind and Choosing Therapy, I realized this is a massive, tangled web of psychology.
Oh, it is.
It's not just they are mean and he is mad.
No, it's much more sophisticated than that. And, today isn't just about validating this one Reddit user, though he certainly deserves it.
He does.
It's about understanding the mechanics of how a victim gets turned into the villain in the eyes of the world. We need to explore why we abandon people when they break, how bad luck functions as a kind of social repellent, and ultimately, how to escape a game that is rigged against you.
So let's start with the mechanism itself, the setup. I think a lot of people hear abuse and they think of, punches or insults, something obvious.
Right, something overt.
But what Gold Tomorrow describes is quieter. It's a slow motion pressure cooker.
It is. And we need to be very precise about the timeline here, because this is where the manipulation happens. And the narrative the family is telling, the story starts when he screams.
Right. Uncle Jim went crazy at Thanksgiving. That's the headline.
That's the headline. But if we look at the source material, particularly the breakdown from Choosing Therapy, the timeline starts long before the scream. The scream is the finale.
So what's the prelude?
The prelude is the pattern of subtle chronic mistreatment. In this case, it's the broken promises. It's the exclusion. It's the gaslighting. It's 1,000 little paper cuts.
He was very specific about that. He said, I'm paraphrasing, I only get upset after broken promises. But the family acts like the anger just materializes out of nowhere.
This is a form of psychological erasure. It's a key tactic. When you react to prolonged stress or cruelty, and the instigator denies the cruelty ever happened, your reaction has no context.
It's just a crazy outburst.
Without context, any high emotion reaction looks like insanity. It really does.
It reminds me of, okay, this is a weird analogy, but imagine you're a dog and someone is just quietly, methodically pinching you under the table.
Okay.
No one else can see the pinch. They just see you sitting there,
Right.
and you're getting more and more agitated. And eventually you snarl, you snap,
Okay.
and suddenly everyone jumps back and says, "Bad dog. That dog is aggressive."
That is a very, very apt analogy. And what happens to the dog?
He gets punished.
It gets put in a crate. It gets disciplined. The person doing the pinching gets comfort. Oh, did he bite you? I'm so sorry. You must be so scared.
It makes
But-
my blood boil.
It should. This is where the term reactive abuse comes from.
Hmm.
It describes that snarl. The victim, pushed to a breaking point, lashes out.
What does that lashing out look like?
It could be anything. They might scream insults, they might throw something, they might physically shove someone away. And because that action looks abusive, I mean, it is aggressive, it is loud, it is hurtful.
A neutral observer would see it and say, "That's abuse."
Absolutely. So the original abuser co-opts the label. They say, "You are abusing me."
But the article from Very Well Mind actually pushes back on this term, doesn't it? I found this really interesting. They argue that reactive abuse is actually a misnomer.
It is a problematic term, yeah. A lot of clinicians are moving away from it. And I think it's for a very good reason. Think about the words. Reactive abuse.
Right. It still centers the word abuse on the victim.
It does. It implies that their reaction is a moral failing or a character flaw rather than a survival instinct.
So what should we call it? What's a better term?
Well, Very Well Mind suggests we just call it what it is. Self-defense. Or if we want to be more clinical, a fight or flight response.
We hear fight or flight all the time, usually in regard to cavemen running from tigers. But apply that to a guy with a TBI sitting in an empty apartment. How does that work?
Let's break down the physiology of that. The threat here isn't a tiger, right? The threat is social isolation. The threat is the feeling of being invisible to the people who are supposed to love you.
And that's a primal threat.
It's one of the most primal threats imaginable for a social species like us. That triggers the same alarm bells in the amygdala as a predator. The brain says, danger, you are unsafe.
So his body is just flooding with adrenaline and cortisol. He's in survival mode 24/7.
Exactly. Now, usually an animal in that state has two choices. Flight, run away from the threat. Or
Hmm.
fight, attack the threat.
Okay.
Gold tomorrow has a physical disability. He can't drive. He relies on these people for survival, even if it's just for, groceries or a ride to the doctor. Can he flee?
No, he's completely trapped.
So when flight is removed from the menu of survival options, the brain defaults to fight. It is a biological imperative. It's not a choice.
So the screaming, the nastiness the family complains about.
That is the sound of a trapped animal trying to bite the hand that is hurting it.
Hmm.
It is pure, unadulterated self-defense.
But the family, they don't see it as survival. Or maybe they do, and they just use it anyway.
This is where we get into the really insidious manipulation tactics described in choosing therapy. This isn't always accidental. Abusers, or even just, toxic family systems, they often learn that provoking this reaction is useful.
Useful how?
It's a get out of jail free card.
Explain that.
Okay, so if I have neglected you, if I've broken my promise to you, deep down, I feel a certain level of social guilt. I know I'm a bad brother or a bad son.
Right. There's a cognitive dissonance there.
For sure.
Huh.
But if I can poke you and provoke you until you call me a horrible name or until you scream at me in front of the neighbors,
Yeah.
suddenly the scoreboard resets.
Ah.
I'm not the bad brother anymore. I'm the victim of the crazy brother.
It justifies the abandonment. It makes it okay that they left him out of the fishing trip.
It sanctifies it. It
Yeah.
makes leaving you feel like a moral act of self-preservation rather than a cruel act of neglect.
That is so calculated. It's so effective, though. I can totally see how that works. You record the scream on your phone, you show it to Aunt Susan, and suddenly Aunt Susan is on your side.
Precisely.
Hmm.
It's evidence manufacturing. It's creating a file of proof that you're the reasonable one and they're the unstable one.
And for the person with the TBI who is likely already struggling with memory or confusion, this must be devastating.
Completely. They might not remember exactly how the argument started. They just remember the intense shame of losing control. And now there's a video of it.
Choosing therapy used this analogy, the school bully. We touched on the dog analogy, but I want to dig into this one because I think it highlights the power dynamic better.
Yeah, the playground analogy is a classic for a reason.
Ah.
It simplifies the variables so we can see the structure really clearly.
So, walk us through it. You have the big kid, popular, strong, wealthy in social capital.
And then you have the small kid. Maybe he's awkward, maybe he's new, maybe he just has the wrong shoes.
Right. And the big kid spends weeks, maybe months doing the subtle stuff, tripping him in the hall where it looks like an accident, whispering insults just loud enough for him to hear.
The invisible cuts,
Mm.
the stuff that doesn't leave a bruise you can show the principal, it's deniable.
Exactly. It's all deniable. And then one day, the small kid snaps. He just can't take it anymore. He punches the big kid. Or he tips over a lunch tray. It's loud, it's messy, it's public.
And who does the teacher see?
The teacher sees the kid flipping the tray, the reaction.
The teacher sees the reaction. And because schools and society at large are designed to punish the disruption rather than investigate the cause, the small kid gets detention, the big kid gets sympathy.
He runs to the teacher playing the martyr. I didn't do anything.
He just attacked me out of nowhere.
Yeah.
But here's the nuance that we often miss when we talk about this as adults. In the adult world, the bully isn't just stealing lunch money. They are controlling the narrative.
It's about reputation management.
It's all about reputation management.
Yeah.
In the Reddit story, the family holds all the cards. They're the ones with the cars, the money, the physical health, the ability to go on fishing trips. They have the social capital.
And the user has nothing. He's isolated.
He has a TBI and a phone. When he reacts, he is fighting a war against a superpower with a slingshot.
And when he fires that slingshot, they nuke him.
They nuke his credibility.
Yeah.
And this is why the distinction between what we call mutual abuse and reactive abuse is so critical to understand.
Okay, break that down.
I hear people say it all the time, well, it takes two to tango, or they're just a toxic couple, they both scream at each other.
I hate that phrase. It takes two to tango. Sometimes it takes one to assault and one to try to push them off.
Correct. Mutual abuse, if it even exists, implies a level playing field. It implies two boxers in a ring, trading blows. They both have power, they both have agency, they're both initiating.
It's symmetrical.
It's symmetrical. Reactive abuse is not a boxing match, it is a siege. One person is inside the castle, starving, and the other person is outside, controlling the food supply, poisoning the well.
Wow.
When the person inside finally throws a rock over the wall out of sheer desperation, that is not mutual combat, that is desperation. And to call it the same thing is a profound injustice.
We need to talk about the gaslighting component of this, because it's not just that they punish him for reacting. They try to convince him that his reality isn't real.
Gaslighting is the engine that keeps this whole machine running.
Mhm.
Without it, the victim might trust their own instincts.
So it's not a separate thing. It's woven into the whole process.
It's the lubricant. And Very Well Mind breaks down a few specific types of gaslighting seen in these dynamics.
Hmm.
One that stood out to me in this context is what some psychologists call perspecticide.
Perspecticide, that sounds ominous. Like the death of perspective.
Exactly. It's the killing of the victim's ability to trust their own perspective on reality. It's a systematic erosion of their sanity.
So how does that play out here?
The family doesn't just say, you shouldn't have screamed. That would be a criticism of his behavior. Perspecticide is when they say, you're imagining the neglect. We invite you to things all the time. You're just too sick to remember.
Oh, that is insidious.
Yeah.
Especially with a TBI victim who might actually have memory gaps. They're weaponizing his injury against him.
It's the perfect crime. It creates a total reliance on the abuser for what's real. If you can't trust your own brain because of the injury, and you can't trust your family because they're lying to you, where do you stand?
You're in free fall. You're completely untethered from reality.
And you cling to the only people who are offering you a reality, even if it's a false one.
The user mentioned he put up boundaries, and they made him the bad guy for that too. How does that fit in?
Boundaries are the enemy of the reactive abuse cycle.
Yeah.
A boundary is the victim saying, you can no longer poke me here.
It's an attempt to stop the provocation.
It is. So the abuser has to frame the boundary itself as an act of aggression. Oh, you're not coming to Christmas because you need space. You're tearing this family apart.
So his attempt to protect himself is framed as an attack on them.
Every single time. It's a checkmate situation.
Huh.
He's forced to sit at the table and be poked because if he tries to leave the table, he's the bad guy.
It feels like a stalemate where he's forced to sit at the table. He can't leave, but he can't win. It's just perpetual torment.
It is a bind. But I want to shift gears slightly here. We've talked a lot about the how, the mechanics of the trap, but I keep coming back to the why. Why does family do this? Why do people who presumably grew up with this guy, who loved him at some point, suddenly turn into these monsters?
It's the question that keeps you up at night, right? Is it pure evil? Is it hatred? What drives this?
I don't think it's pure evil most of the time. I
Right.
think it's something more common and more pathetic. There was a comment in the Reddit thread that I think unlocks this whole mystery. It was from a user named Hamilton Morris. Did you catch that one?
I did. It was heavy. He talked about bad luck being a contaminant.
A toxic contaminant.
Mm.
It's such a powerful, disturbing phrase.
It sounds like something out of a sci-fi horror movie, but he's talking about social standing, about relationships.
He's tapping into a very deep, very ugly part of evolutionary sociology. The user wrote, and I'm quoting here, "The unhappy reality is that any sort of bad luck can function as a toxic contaminant in relationships."
So because Gold Tomorrow got hit by a truck, which is the definition of random bad luck, he is now infected with misfortune.
In the eyes of his tribe, yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We like to believe in what psychologists call the just world hypothesis.
The idea that the world is fair.
The idea that good things happen to good people and bad things happen to bad people. It makes us feel safe. It makes us feel like we have control over our own lives.
If I work hard, I'll succeed. If I drive carefully, I won't get hit.
Exactly. But when you look at your brother, who is just riding his bike like he always does, and he gets flattened by an F-150, that shatters the illusion.
It proves that chaos is real.
It proves that the universe is indifferent. It proves that you could be next. And that is a terrifying existential truth.
So looking at him is a constant nagging reminder of their own vulnerability.
He is a walking memento mori, a reminder of death and frailty and randomness.
Mm-hmm.
And most people, unless they have done a lot of work on themselves, a lot of inner work, cannot handle that anxiety.
They can't sit with that discomfort.
They can't. They want to look away. They want to distance themselves from the bad luck before it gets
It's
it.
like he has the plague, but the plague is just tragedy.
Exactly. And this leads to what Hamilton Morris called the instinctive and easy abandonment. He argues that this usually isn't about active malice. It's not that the brother wakes up and thinks, I'm going to destroy Gold Tomorrow's life today.
It's more like, I don't want to deal with how awkward and sad it is to see him.
Yes, it's the banality of avoidance. It's the path of least resistance. He's different now. He speaks slower. He gets confused. It's hard to have a beer with him. I'd rather go fishing with the guys who are normal.
That feels almost worse than malice. It's just
Yes.
weak. It's cowardly.
It is profound weakness. It is a failure of character. But for the person doing it, it feels like self-care.
Oh, wow.
They tell themselves, I just need to avoid the negativity, or I have to protect my own mental health. They frame his disability and his suffering as negativity to justify their exit.
And this connects right back to the reactive abuse, doesn't it? If they feel that little twinge of guilt for leaving him out of the fishing trip and then he calls and screams at them for it,
The guilt evaporates. The scream is a gift. It's an absolution.
it validates their weakness.
Completely. See, I was right to stay away. He's impossible now. He's so angry all the time. It is a self-fulfilling prophecy that protects the ego of the abandoner.
That is bleak. But it makes so much sense. It explains why they record the outbursts. They are collecting evidence to prove to themselves more than anyone else that they aren't bad people.
Exactly. They're building a case for their own innocence. And the victim's reaction is their star witness.
I want to talk about what this does to a person. We've talked about the emotional side, the confusion, the shame. But what about the physical side? Because we're talking about a TBI survivor here. The stress isn't just stress.
No, it's a neurotoxin. The article from Choosing Therapy lays out the long-term effects of living in this state of constant siege, and it is a laundry list of physical degradation.
We know about cortisol. We know about the fight or flight chemicals being bad long term.
But think about what those chemicals do to a healing brain. A TBI requires rest. It requires low inflammation. It requires a calm, predictable environment to rewire neural pathways.
It's like trying to do delicate surgery in the middle of an earthquake.
That's a great way to put it. When you are in a state of reactive abuse, constantly vigilant, constantly defending yourself, constantly flooded with adrenaline, you are in a state of systemic inflammation.
So the family's behavior is literally preventing his brain from healing.
It is biological sabotage. Whether they intend it or not, that's the result. The list of symptoms from living in this state includes hair loss, ulcers, cardiac issues, sleep disorders, digestive
It
problems.
literally breaks the body down.
It does. And then there's the psychological damage, which is profound. We're not just talking about sadness, we're talking about CPTSD, complex post-traumatic stress disorder.
That's different from regular PTSD, right?
Yeah, it is. PTSD is usually associated with a single acute event. The crash itself was a PTSD event.
The moment of impact.
Right. CPTSD comes from ongoing, inescapable trauma where the victim has no control, like being a prisoner of war, or a child in an abusive home, or in this case, being trapped in a family that is turned against you.
And what does CPTSD do to a person?
It fundamentally rewrites your personality. You become hypervigilant, always scanning for threats. You lose your sense of self-worth. You struggle with emotional regulation. You don't trust anyone. You lose your sense of who you are.
You don't know who you are anymore. You're just a bundle of raw defensive reactions.
That's the tragedy here. Gold tomorrow isn't just losing his family. He's losing the opportunity to find his new self, the post-TBI self, because he's constantly fighting for his survival against the people who are supposed to be his safe harbor.
Okay, we have to find a way out of this. We've painted a very dark, but I think very accurate picture. I don't want to leave people there.
Yeah.
If someone is listening to this and nodding along, if they are seeing their own life in this story, what do they do? Where do they even start?
The first step, and it's the hardest one, is recognition. It's admitting this is what's happening. The Very Well Mind article has a checklist, and I think we should walk through it because seeing it laid out can be really powerful.
Okay, let's do it. The first one on their list is uncharacteristic behavior.
This is the am I possessed feeling.
Yeah.
You need to look at your actions, your outburst, and ask, is this me? Is this who I am at my core?
So if you're usually the guy who hates confrontation, the peacemaker, but you find yourself screaming insults or throwing a plate against the wall,
That is a massive red flag. Not that you are inherently a violent or abusive person, but that you are being pushed far beyond your window of tolerance. If you are acting in ways that violate your own moral code, that is a sign of reactive abuse.
the second one they list is confusion and guilt.
This is the key differentiator. A primary abuser usually feels justified. They might say they're sorry, but deep down they think he deserved it.
But the victim,
A victim of reactive abuse feels horrified by their own actions. They're the ones lying in bed at 3 a.m. replaying it, thinking, oh my God, why did I say that? I'm a monster. The shame is overwhelming.
so if you are lying in bed at night beating yourself up for screaming, that's actually a sign you might be the victim here.
Paradoxically, yes. The shame is a sign that the behavior is ego dystonic. It doesn't match your true sense of self. It feels alien to you.
And the third one is provocation. We talked about this, but how do you spot it in the moment? It can be so subtle.
Look for the smirk.
Wow.
No, seriously, look for the emotional disconnect. If you are crying, hyperventilating, and screaming, and the other person is calmly sipping their coffee and saying, you're being so dramatic, you are in a reactive abuse cycle.
They're calm because they got what they wanted.
There are scientists who just proved their hypothesis.
Yeah.
They wanted a reaction, they got a reaction, and now they're just calmly observing the data.
That visual,
Yeah.
the calm person versus the crazy person, it's a lie. It's a performance.
It's a stage play. And once you see the strings, you can stop dancing. You can refuse to play your part.
Which brings us to the strategies, the escape plan. The first one mentioned in the sources, specifically choosing therapy, is the gray rock method. I've heard this term thrown around a lot, but I want to get into the nitty-gritty of it. Because it sounds easy in theory, but it sounds incredibly hard to actually do.
It is excruciatingly difficult. It takes the discipline of a monk. The concept is simple. You become as boring and uninteresting as a gray rock.
No emotion.
No emotional surface area for the abuser to latch onto. No witty comebacks, no defending yourself, no crying. You offer them nothing.
So let's role play this for a second. Gold tomorrow is on the phone with his brother. His brother says, well, maybe if you got a job, you wouldn't be so depressed. He knows that's a button. He knows Gold tomorrow can't work because of the TBI.
Right. The old reaction would be to defend. I can't work. You know, the doctor said I can't. How can you say that to me?
Right. Explosion. And the brother wins.
The gray rock reaction is silence or a non-committal hum. Interesting opinion. Okay.
Okay, just that. That's it.
Just that. You don't explain. You don't justify. You don't engage. You starve the flame of oxygen. The goal is to make poking you deeply unsatisfying.
But the brother isn't going to just stop, is he? If I poke you and you don't jump, I'm going to poke harder, right?
This is a critical concept people have to understand before they try this. It's called the extinction burst.
Okay.
In behavioral psychology, when you stop reinforcing a behavior, in this case by not reacting, the behavior often spikes dramatically before it goes away. It's like a toddler pressing a button on a toy that stopped working. They don't just walk away, they mash the button harder and harder.
So when you start gray rocking, the abuse might actually get worse for a little while.
It almost certainly will.
Yeah.
The brother will escalate. He will say something truly vile. He will target the deepest insecurity. Mom always said you were lazy, even before the crash.
Oof. That takes iron willpower to not respond to.
It does. You have to be ready for it. But if you hold the line, if you stay a boring gray rock, eventually the brother realizes the button is broken. The reward of your pain is gone. And like a bored child, he will move on to a different toy.
It's like playing tennis with a wall. Eventually your arm gets tired and you go home.
Exactly. But you have to be prepared for that spike. You have to weather the storm.
The other strategy, and this loops back to that incredible comment from Hamilton Morris on Reddit, is social repopulation. I love this term. It sounds like colonizing a new planet.
In a way, it is. It is colonizing a new life for yourself.
The idea, as he put it, is that the old friends, the fishing buddies, the family, they are contaminated by the memory of who you used to be.
They can't see you. They can only see the ghost of old you.
And they're always comparing TBIU to old you. And TBIU always comes up short.
And that comparison breeds disappointment and awkwardness on their part and shame on yours. They are mourning a ghost and they're mad at you for not being him.
So the solution is to find people who never knew the ghost.
Yes. Go to a library. Join a TBI support group. Find a new hobby that fits your current abilities, like bird watching or chess. When you meet a stranger, they meet you as you are today.
They have no preconceived notions.
None. They don't know you used to ride a Harley. They don't know you used to be the life of the party. They just see a guy.
They see a guy who maybe talks a little slow or walks with a cane, and they accept that as the baseline. There is no tragic backstory in their eyes. There is just Gold Tomorrow, the guy from the chess club.
It's incredibly freeing to not be looked at with pity or disappointment.
It is the only way to escape the stigma. You have to build a tribe that values the current version of you, not a tribe that is waiting for the old version to return.
Because that old version is gone.
Yeah.
And that's a grief process, but you can't do it with people who are actively punishing you for it.
And finally, we have to talk about the nuclear option, the one that choosing therapy emphasizes as sometimes being the only option: no contact.
Sometimes gray rock isn't enough. If the abuse is destroying your physical health, if the family is actively sabotaging your recovery, you have to cut the cord.
That goes against everything we're taught as a society. Family is everything, blood is thicker than water, all that.
Well, the phrase blood is thicker than water is actually a misquote. The original saying is, the blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb.
Get out. Really?
Really, it means the opposite of how we use it. It means the bonds you choose, your covenant, are stronger than the family you were born into.
Wow. I did not know that. That flips the whole meaning on its head.
It does. You have a right to survive. You have a right to heal. If your family of origin is the thing that's drowning you, you are allowed to let go of the anchor.
But we should be. Clear leaving can be dangerous.
It is. We have to say this very clearly. The most dangerous time in an abusive relationship is when the victim tries to leave. The abuser feels control slipping and may escalate drastically.
So if you are going to do this, if you're going to go no contact, you need a plan.
You need support. You need resources. Talk to a therapist. Talk to a trusted friend who is outside the family system. And if you feel unsafe, please use the resources available. If you are in the U.S., the National Domestic Violence Hotline is 1-800-799-7233.
And don't assume it's just my brother. He won't physically hurt me.
You cannot assume that. When people lose control, when their narrative is threatened, they become unpredictable. Safety first. Always.
We've covered a massive amount of ground today. I mean, we started with a motorcycle crash, went through the mechanics of psychological warfare, looked at the evolutionary reasons for abandonment, and talked about how to actually rebuild a life.
It's a journey from victimhood to agency. It's about taking the power back.
If you want our listeners to take just one thing away from this whole deep dive, what should it be?
Validation. I think it's validation. If you have been told you are crazy for screaming at someone who is hurting you, I want you to hear this. You are not crazy. You are a biological organism trying to survive.
It's a normal reaction to an abnormal situation.
Exactly. Your anger is not a symptom of illness. It is a symptom of dignity. It is the part of you that knows you deserve better, fighting to be heard.
That's powerful. Anger as dignity. I've never heard it put that way.
Use that anger. Don't let it consume you, but use it as fuel.
Yeah.
Use it as the fuel to set the boundary, to become the gray rock, to make the plan, to walk away.
And I want to leave our listeners, especially the ones who haven't experienced this, the ones who might be listening and judging this family, with a question. It's the mirror question we kind of promised at the start.
We all like to think we are the heroes of our own stories. We think, I would never abandon my brother. I would never be that family from the Reddit post.
Of course, it's easy to be loyal when everyone is healthy and happy and fun to be around.
But Gold Tomorrow's story proves that loyalty is fragile, that our comfort often matters more to us than our character. So ask yourself, and be brutally honest with yourself, if the person you love most in the world suddenly changed,
In a fundamental way.
if they became difficult, if they became a source of social awkwardness, if their tragedy made your life harder just by being near them, if they became a toxic contaminant, would you stay?
Or would you find a good reason to drift away?
Would you tell yourself, it's just too negative and leave them in the apartment with a casual good luck?
That is a terrifying question, but I think we have to answer it honestly if we want to actually be the people we think we are.
Absolutely.
Thank you for listening to the deep dive. This was a heavy one, but a really important one.
Take care of yourselves and take care of each other for real.
We'll see you next time.